Welcome to the Conversations with Body and Mind. www.bodyandmind.co.za, the largest health and wellness online directory. Today, myself, Antoinette Nirvana, and Jonti from Eros Life. Very interesting conversation today. I'm looking forward to chatting to you. How are you doing?
Thank you very much for the opportunity to share.
Yeah, looking forward to one of my favorite subjects. Let's talk about sex. And it's not just about let's talk about sex. There's so much more about sex than just the animal act, and we'll get into that a little bit later. What I'd like to know first, Jonti, is a little bit about you, the journey that brought you into Eros Life. What is it that brought you into doing the works that you're doing?
Well, I was always fascinated by sex as a teenager, like everybody is, boys and girls. And also spirituality was a very strong energy in my life. My grandmother was very spiritual, a very alternate person. And I had a natural understanding and affinity for energy, for spirituality. And I always figured that the sex and spirituality were somehow connected. At that age, I didn't understand how. And my sexual interest wasn't spiritual, it was kind of much more sexual. And I went a personal journey of sexual exploration. I had a lot of experiences, did everything that I possibly could to understand how things worked, what were they all about. And at the same time was learning in the fields of first psychology and then I guess human behavior. I did a lot of body work that really fascinated me, the world of touch, of sensuality, and kept kind of moving between these two worlds. Practiced kinesiology for a long time, and then woke up one morning and said, this is what I want to do in the field of sexuality, and jumped in with both feet, knowing a lot and not knowing a lot. And it's been since then a journey of almost 20 years of constant learning and exploration and growth, which continues to this day.
Well, that's amazing. And I've actually done two of your courses and learned so much, not only about myself and the awareness that we have. There's so much more to it, which I would now like you to go into telling us about the sexuality, the sacred sexuality, the sensual touch, and Eros Life and what you have to offer.
So what I do is work with people, firstly with sexual and relationship problems and issues, and then with people who have good relationships or good sex lives and are interested in exploring and learning more. So besides my practice, I offer a whole range of lessons and workshops. I've produced a whole series of educational DVDs. I present a show called Sex Talk on cliffcentral.com every Friday morning. I write lots, and it's everything to do with sexuality and sensuality, spirituality, how they all connect. So very often people come to a journey of this nature looking for something sexual and soon understand that it has so much to do with sexuality and nothing to do with sexuality, that it's so much about our hearts, it's about the patterns of our lives that often just simply play out in our sexuality. And it's very much about bringing the fullness of your sexuality and sensuality into life, that it connects to every part of who we are. It's not just this little box that we bring out in very specific circumstances and use and then put away again. It's about the fullness of our beings, of being engaged with life. And from a sexual point of view, we get very little or no education to be a good lover and to have a good relationship. And it's one of the most important parts of life. And we get so little tools for this. We're just expected to get it right, which becomes quite ridiculous when you think about it, that there is so much information today on everything that we do. You know, you go to school, you go to varsity, you go to college, you're learning all the time. In whatever field you work in, you're learning all the time. So you, for example, as a healer, as a conscious being, you don't learn in what you're doing. You just kind of repeat a pattern. And all that you're doing often is repeating information that you've learned or a technique that you've learned. So our sexuality, our relationships are a path of constant exploration. From a relationship point of view, nobody teaches us to have a good relationship. What does intimacy mean? How do you communicate? How do you understand the idea that we're together now and in 5 years' time, we're going to be totally different people? How do we cope with that? Where do we find the tools to allow us to keep expanding our relationships? So that's what I do. And a lot of this is about the energy of sexuality, the higher experiences, how you can have cosmic orgasms, expanded orgasm. So for most people, an orgasm lasts 20 seconds, if that. Expanded orgasm allows you to be in an orgasmic state for 20 or 30 minutes or even longer. But more than that, it becomes a tool for healing, for meditation, to reach higher experience of consciousness. So our sexuality has so much more to offer us than just the act of sex, as you said. So, having sex is really easy. I get an erection, you open your legs, we have sex. It's pleasurable, it's nice, it's wonderful, it's boring, it's whatever it is. But there's so much more to explore in this limitless field.
Yeah, it's instant gratification if you're not really understanding the journey of tantric or sensual sexuality. I wanted to ask you if the interest in what you're doing has kind of increased since 50 Shades of Grey started coming out, and a lot more of this alternate way of just missionary position was exposed out there. Would you say that a lot more people realized something about sexuality since that came out?
Yes. And I need to say this first, and we've spoken about this in so many different forums and ways. 50 Shades is absolutely, it's a terrible book, it was a terrible movie, but what it did was it brought the idea of bondage and that whole world of fetish to the forefront. And it made it normal for people to talk about it, to explore it, to watch it, and to learn about it. So there's definitely been this amazing expansion. And there's a very conscious aspect to kink and fetish, that it allows you to explore different aspects of yourself, different roles within yourself. It makes a lot of fantasies normal. It teaches you to be more creative in your sexuality. And there's an incredibly powerful healing aspect for men and women and relationships in exploring and being engaged more in this fetish world.
The other question that I have for you is there is a lot of damage being done, especially to women, and not taking away that little boys are also being injured sexually with sexual abuse and things like that. And that must have a very bad and very negative aspect on the young people. Let me call it the young people. I mean, yesterday was Women's Day, so my tendency is to want to, speak about women, but my biggest passion is about protecting children. So whether it's girls or boys, there must be so much harm in, and myself coming from a sexual abuse in childhood, know the journey that it takes, especially then into sexual healing. Do you offer a lot of that for people, especially when you're in your sort of adulthood, that could come and find healing with the damage that was caused?
Yeah, that's probably most of the work that I do in my practice. And a lot of that happens on the workshops as well, where people are looking for healing, and the workshops become a vehicle to experience that. So if you look at the current research, what it shows is anywhere between 45 and 65% of women are not having orgasms. And a lot of that is because of negative sexual experiences from the past, limiting beliefs, inhibitions, sexual abuse, things like that. And all of that sits in our bodies. Our sexuality is in our bodies much more than it's in our minds. So for example, the term in Tantra that we use for a vagina is yoni, Y-O-N-I. Yoni means sacred space, sacred place. So a lot of women, for example, don't have a G-spot inside the yoni, or they think that they don't. And every woman has a G-spot. But tissue that should be alive and awake and sensitive is numb or tender or even painful because of negative sexual experiences, because of abuse. And in South Africa, the figure is that 1 in 3 women have been sexually abused. And that's quite horrendous, and it's across all population groups. And the impact on our sexuality is enormous in terms of pleasure, in terms of relationship, and in terms of your personal power as a woman. So about 70% of people that I work with are women looking for sexual healing. And that's the focus of what I do. And the worlds of Tantra, of Taoist sexuality, of conscious sexuality, all offer that as possibilities for women.
Yeah, so one of the big things for women, I think, is first and foremost is to overcome the shame. And I think with what you do, that is the one main step, is to recognize the shame that you are carrying. And as you say, you're carrying that in your body, and because you always carry that kind of guilt and blame that maybe it was your fault, or you should have, done something.
Yeah, so much about that, and even connected to your acceptance of yourself as a sexual being. Full stop. Just simply accepting yourself as a being of pleasure, giving yourself permission to have pleasure. And that's not only about orgasm, but simply enjoying touch, enjoying sex, and being intimate with someone, being intimate with a partner.
Thank you. And tell me, so some of the things that you have to offer your massage experience, healing and counseling. You've got an online store, which I can imagine has got some really interesting goodies to play with for girls to have that toy drawer next to the bed, and not only just for themselves, but even with their partners. Why don't you tell me a little bit more about the workshops and retreats that you have to offer, and where do you do these?
Okay, so I'm based in Johannesburg, but I do travel throughout the country. So for example, we did a beautiful sensual massage retreat on the south coast in Durban a couple of weeks back. I'm planning a trip to Cape Town quite soon to teach. At the moment, what's coming up is a 6-session course for couples on the idea that intimacy is the tool that holds your relationship together. So this is teaching you the tools to create that intimacy in your relationship. There's a beautiful psychologist called Esther Perel who does a lot of work with sexuality, and she says that there are no relationship experts. There are just people who have thought about relationships more than you. In the same way that maybe there are no sexual experts, they're just people who have explored and thought about it a lot more than you. And if you have the tools, you can become an expert in your own life, in your own sexuality, and in your own relationship. And that's what a lot of the courses are about, is giving you those tools. So the 6-week course coming up is teaching you exercises that you'll go home and do that will help you create the relationship that you would like to have. Yeah, that's in Johannesburg. And if there's enough interest in Cape Town, I'd love to come and do it. We could do it as a weekend, or, any way people want. I love to share. That's my thing. That's my passion, is how can I share? How can I help you have more pleasure, be more in your heart, and live the life and relationship that will be the most fulfilling for you?
Thank you very much, Jonti. And your contact details and how people can get hold of you, including your social media pages and stuff like that, if you could share that with us.
Yes, I'm a very hard person to find. I am on Facebook as Jonti Searll. Instagram is Eros Life SA. Twitter is Eros Life SA. My website is www.eroslife.co.za.
And you can go to the Body and Mind website. That is www.bodyandmind.co.za, and you can just search in the search bar Eros Life or Jonti, Jonti, and you can find his details on there, a mobile number and a link to his website as well as his email address. There's also the Body and Mind app that you can download onto your iPhone and Android, and all of the information of all of our practitioners and members and products are available onto the Body and Mind app, and you can search for Jonti. Thank you, Jonti, for a lovely chat today. Glad that we had this wonderful conversation.
Thank you, and thank you to Tracy and the Body and Mind team for the wonderful platform and work that they've been doing for so long with such openness and acceptance.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Thank you.